So I'm going to go over now some of the types of drivers that you're going to meet when you do these hill country cruises. The first person you'll meet is the lead driver. A good lead driver will usually introduce themselves, tell you who they are, give you updates on everything, and tell you what's going on. The lead car is usually someone that knows these roads better than anybody else, and they're one fast driver. You're not going to catch a good lead driver on these roads, no matter how good you think you are. These lead drivers have been, they probably even grew up on these roads. And the lead driver is responsible for dictating the pace, for making sure everybody stays safe, for making sure that no one gets lost. The second driver that you'll meet is actually the second driver. That's the number 2 driver behind the lead driver. A good lead driver will have another car somewhere in the middle of the pack, and their job is to help the leader dictate the pace. That second car in the middle of the pack will always have a radio, and the lead driver has a radio, and they'll contact each other to tell them things like, hey, this group is spreading out too much, slow down, bunch them up to make sure nobody gets lost. The second car is kind of an administrative role. Okay, we're going too quick, slow it down. Okay, you know, there's a car that's you know, slow, that's off pace, and make sure that they're okay. And so, you know, the second car is kind of a lookout, and they make sure that the rest of the group sticks together as best as they can. And the second car is usually almost as good as the lead driver, if not as good. It's just they don't want to be in charge and have all the responsibility the lead car does, because they want to go fast and have fun too. Another driver that you'll meet is the tail car. The tail car, to me, is a very important, crucial part in a cruise, because they're what ultimately keeps the group together. Normally, a good lead driver will have someone that he trusts at the rear that isn't necessarily a fast driver, but is a good driver and a smart driver and knows the roads. The tail car is in charge of making sure the group stays together. The tail car makes sure that all the cars clear the turn, and they tell the lead driver, okay, everybody cleared this turn and we can pick up the pace. A lot of times I will use a tail driver as someone to be a lookout, to try and spot things. You know, a tail driver will try and spot, okay, this car looks like it's having issues, it might break down. A tail car will spot things like, this driver is driving too unsafe and erratic, so that someone can talk to them and let them know, hey, we don't tolerate that. And, you know, the tail car also makes sure, hey, I'm separating too much from the middle car, slowed the pack down, and to get everybody back together. The tail guy has to be dependable. And it has to be someone that you know, that you trust, or at least in my book, that's what I like to do. I like to put someone that I know I do these roads with, that I can trust to be a good tail driver to be with me. Another driver you'll find, and I'm going to go ahead and actually say that this one, every single drive you could possibly ever do, even when you drive down the regular streets as a civilian, when you're not on the hill country, you will find this person, the slow poker. The slow poker is that one person that's such a horrible driver, they will make you smack your face and ask yourself, how did they even get their damn license? You wonder how they even own a car or drive, because they're just that slow. The slow poker will almost always piss everybody off because they go really, really slow. I mean, we're talking like below the speed limit kind of slow. And it's very irritating, but you know, you just have to deal with it as you can. A good lead driver will always adjust the pace back and forth to allow the slow poker to be slow and not have to worry about overdriving and getting freaked out to catch up. And that's why it's very important to have a tail car and a mid car to tell you, hey, slow poker's at it again. You gotta kind of let the group catch up, you know, and things like that. So always be on the lookout for the slow poker. I guarantee you, when you do a hill country cruise, you'll meet this driver. And I call this driver no sense of direction. This driver is probably the biggest issue in any group, because this person has no clue what they're doing or where they're going. And you know who they are, because they're always the one that can never find the meeting place and has to ask you 10 times, where is it again? Wait, where is it again? I take a right turn? No. Left turn? No. Right turn? You wonder how they can even find their way out of a paper bag when you stick it on their head. That's how horrible their sense of direction is. They'll always get left behind on the group, because you know what? You'll tell them right 10 times and they'll go left. Then they'll end up somewhere they're not supposed to be, and everybody's like, where'd that one driver go? Oh. Then you gotta stop everything and go back and look for them because they took a wrong turn. Then they're gonna sit there and they're gonna tell you, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to turn left. No, we're supposed to turn right. Well, I mean right. The first timer noob will have a lot of spirit and desire, but not much else. Ability usually falls short with the first time noob because they have no idea what's going on. In a sense, they're almost like the no sense of direction driver. Most of the noobs think they can handle it until they realize how fast the group is. They quickly realize their car, which is mostly stock and unmodded, is just not cut out for hill country runs. They get in awe of the time it takes to cover the distance that we do on the drive. A lot of times you'll know who the noob is because they'll always be the one that gets all the phone calls and their phone blows up as soon as you have signal. The noob will always forget to tell their wives exactly what they're getting into. The noob will get all the angry phone calls from the significant other. Oh, you know, they didn't know how long the road was going to be. They didn't know that there was any signal. It just depends. Noobs are hit or miss. You get some noobs that become something good, and you get some noobs that are slightly irritating. But, you know, we try not to judge noobs on the first time. We like to give them a couple of runs before we can really take a guess at what they are, whether they're going to be something good or not. But you'll always have a noob that's never done this before on the first time ever. But some noobs learn and they enjoy it, and they discover that this is a passion for them in their lives. And eventually they'll get in good with some of the lead drivers and the, you know, mid drivers, and eventually they'll fall in and they'll actually be promoted from noob to tail car. Mr. Race Tune and no gas. This driver will be the one that almost never has any gas. They usually come in late because they didn't fill up before the drive, and now you have to wait on them and waste time before leaving. They will be driving very slow at some point because they are terrified of running out of gas. You'll know who they are because they'll be complaining at the gas station that they have to use that dreaded pump gas because all the gas stations out there don't have E85 because their car has an E85 tune to achieve maximum power, and yet they're only mediocre at best, barely hanging out with the mid-pack of cars. And all I can tell you is E85 in the hill country does not help you. Contrary to popular belief, you know, these hill country roads aren't about power, they aren't about fast or anything like that. And so E85 is almost useless. And that's probably why a lot of stations don't even have it out here. I mean, who runs E85 in the middle of cow country anyways? I don't know. Another driver you'll see on the hill country cruises is the weekend warrior. This driver will go to any and all events that involves driving fast, but they won't always be fast. Their car will make tons of noise and have a stupid loud exhaust, and they will be hyper in a chipper mood and hate stopping and always want to be on the move.
Sounds like a mosquito.
They will make fun of anything that isn't boosted or a V8 like their car is that they are driving. Weekend warrior usually drives some kind of modded muscle car, a Subaru, or some sort of 370, 350Z. They will be fast compared to most. Not a horrible driver, but nowhere as near as good as the drivers leading the event. They'll be decent. They're not bad people. The weekend warrior is just obnoxious. He's like that drunk uncle that you love so much, but you always regret having to invite him because you know how he acts in public. That's kind of how the weekend warrior guy is. One of the drivers that you're going to meet is the street racer. This driver doesn't understand the concept of hill country cruise. To this guy, it's a race, and he's going to race everybody. You'll always be able to spot the street racer. You're always going to ask who the leader is and whether or not he's quote-unquote fast or not. And they don't see the lead driver as the lead driver. They see the lead driver as a challenge. They will usually not care about what the cause is or what the charity is about. They just want to show off to all their friends how fast they're going. And you'll always hear them talking about all their mods and all their horsepower. And you'll see them usually pass everybody on the double yellows and try and shuffle the pack out to work their way up to the lead car. The street racer will eventually, and it never fails, the street racer will eventually get up to the lead car, try and take on the lead car, and get grossly embarrassed. You'll hear them the rest of the day complain about excuses as to why they lost to the lead driver. A driver that you'll almost always come across on a hill country cruise is a driver I like to call Moneybags. Moneybags James-Erik is the driver with the most expensive mods on his car and the money to do it. He's Mr. Twin Turbo. My car's supercharged. My car has 600 horsepower and so on. Yeah, Moneybags is some kind of like retired person or some kind of like, you know, cashed his 401k or sold the business and he has all this money.
Oh, gotcha.
Moneybags will have 600 horsepower in his car. And heaven forbid someone gets 601 because now Moneybags has got to drop another 2 or 3 G's to make sure he has 602. The thing about Moneybags is you hardly ever see his car because it's always in the shop getting work done. Not just by one shop, but several. And usually when Moneybags comes, he comes in his daily driver that he's been modifying because he's still trying to pay off the shop that he had his car at. You know, Moneybags will be bouncing around from shop to shop trying to get bang for the buck, and he wants to hear no excuses. Moneybags wants to have the most horsepower. He wants to be in the fastest car. And the thing is, Moneybags will only show up to maybe one event, if at all, when we have him. And he does more talking about his car than you actually see his car. You might see more pictures of his car than you ever see his car in person.
Not at all.
The exotic driver. This man is somebody that usually drives a car that's more expensive than the houses of half the people in this group. Some are cool and some are rare. You know, some exotic drivers just want to be out there to push the car a little bit before they keep it in the garage again. The difference between the exotic car and Moneybags is Moneybags spends all his money making his cars fast. The exotic driver leaves it stock and just figures, hey, it's a Ferrari, it's a Lamborghini, it's okay. Most exotic drivers will complain in secret about the pace being too slow. The exotic driver will usually split off from the group after complaining that the pace is too slow, and they will take Moneybags, the Weekend Warrior, and the Street Racer with them. But the group will usually catch up to them later on, as one of them is usually facing the wrong way, pulled off in the dirt, hanging off a bridge, or pulled over by the police. Another driver that you'll almost always meet at a hill country cruise is the cutesy girl. This one will come in fashionably late in her mostly stock, underpowered car. It may have a few cheap bargain mods, but it's definitely not a powerhouse car. But they don't care. They're not there really to be fast. They're there to get attention for themselves. Usually you'll see them driving in a BRZ, an FRS, some sort of Mazda hatchback, or boosted Ford of some sort. Focus, Mustang, Fiesta. Sometimes they may even have a Kia, but it's always going to be some kind of underpowered, overrated car. She won't be as fast as everyone else, but that doesn't matter because she's not really out there to be quick. She's out there for the attention. She will usually have some sort of fan page or blog that she's trying to solicit for. Some might see her and know her from the modeling that she does at the car shows and meets. She will claim she dreams of being a race car driver someday, but she mostly puts her ass on the cars instead of in them. She won't ever show up to any real racing events, but she'll never miss a meet or a car show. The next people you'll see, this is actually a group of people because there's several of them. There's never just one. There's always a whole crew of these people, but they are the meet people. We all know the type, the meet people, the hard parkers, the late night parking lot hangarounds. These are the ones that sit around all night and talk about racing instead of actually doing it. They may be doing a roll race that thinks they might qualify them to take on the hill country driver and all the other drivers out there. They usually only go on a cruise because they heard Mr. Race Tune, Street Racer, and the cutesy girl are all out there. They usually show up at the very last second and have to look cool, meeting up somewhere else and coming in together as a big group. They usually get mad because the lead driver tends to cut their pre-cruise parking lot socializing short because they always have to do something before they leave. You'll see the meet people trying to take selfies and trying to take pictures and all that right when we're trying to leave. They'll complain about how long the drive is and how far it is, then be upset because their hero, the Street Racer, was put to shame by all the lead drivers in the pack. They won't have the time to take their photos and selfies and videos like they like to for their social media pages, like they do when they're out in San Marcos and New Braunfels. These people usually come once and don't come back because the group hates having to have them because they're always rushing them to try and get out because they hold everything up. You'll usually meet a camera person, vlogger / media person on a hill country cruise. The camera media vlogger person is usually someone that's trying to start their own amateur business, blogging, making videos, or they're going to be a photographer. They'll usually have some expensive equipment that they hardly know how to use, but will do anything to get with the shot. These guys are brave. You'll see these guys hanging out the back window of a car, trying to get their footage. They're going to go for the glory and make sure that they get the shots and get, you know, the attention they deserve. Some of them aren't too bad. Some of these beginners are not bad. I mean, they do all right. So you're kind of like, man, I've seen some photographers hang out the windows of speeding cars and take pictures of all the cars going by up and down hills, and it's just like, man, that guy really wants it. And you'll usually see amateur cameraman vlogger person. They'll be out there because they were there with cutesy girls, but they're cool people. I've met a couple of good camera people and photography people, and it's just like anything else, it's hit or miss. You'll find some really great photographers that take some great shots and really have a passion for what they do, and you find some that are just trying to do that because they don't want to be subordinate to anybody else. They don't want to be bossed around by anybody else, so they decide to quit their decent paying job because they were too bored by it and didn't like being told what to do, and try and do their own business and try and do their own thing. So they think they can get rich off of trying to make photographs and sell them to everybody, but it doesn't always work that way. But if you're just doing this as a side hustle for extra money, being a camera person isn't so bad. Another driver that you'll meet on the hill country cruise is the drifter. Another one that sticks out like a sore thumb. The drifter has cambered wheels and the car is slammed. It has no bumper. They take every corner sideways, throwing up smoke and making noise constantly revving their engines and all that kind of stuff. And the drifters are hit or miss, I gotta be honest. There's some drifters that are really cool, good drivers, and they respect everything. Every now and then they throw the tail out. And as a lead driver, I don't mind that. I only take issue when you have the ones that do it every turn or when it's straight, you know? I've met a few pro drifters that do the D1 circuit type stuff, and they've actually behaved on some of these roads. It's just the ones that do it on the weekends in the parking lots that, you know, they'll drift through somewhere like here, like where it's straight. It's like, come on, guys, really? But you'll almost always have one drifter in every group. Is the obscure car driver. Most of these people can be seen driving cars, and they're usually masters of these cars, but they're masters of cars that nobody else is familiar with because nobody else drives these. And there are a lot of cars that they'll modify or that they'll drive the living crap out of, and they'll be like, you did what? What? You drive what? And they'll be faster than some of the other cars and really get a lot of attention for themselves. And they don't want the attention. They're just out there driving, trying to have so much fun. And all of a sudden it's like, really? I'm doing a really good job driving? Like, you'll see it all. One of the guys is a guy I recently met. Good old Roland here. What's up, Roland?
What's up, man?
Roland here is one of those obscure car drivers in his Nismo Sentra. Nobody expected the Nismo Sentra to be as fast as it is. And, you know, there's also him, and there's also Kevin, the guy in the 400 horsepower Beetle that I outran the GTRs with one year on this cruise. This same cruise, as a matter of fact. So, you know, you're always going to have those obscure drivers. The only issue I have with obscure drivers is they only know 2 speeds, wide open and stop. So it's hard for them to get a maintained pace going through everything because they just want to fly through everything like a bat out of hell. And, you know, you worry about them breaking down or shredding tires or running their car to the ground. But obscure car driver doesn't care. They're just in it for the fun. They're in it for the rush. They got to feel the need for speed, so they go out there and do it with the rest of us. You can't hate them for it. In a way, they're enthusiasts like the rest of us. And sometimes I don't mind obscure car driver because you find some interesting cars that are very underrated, and you say to yourself, well, that's actually not a bad car. Until I met Roland here, I actually never knew how similar the Juke was to this Nismo Sentra. And in a way, I ended up knowing a lot about the Nismo Sentra because I know a lot about my Juke and how similar those cars were. It's very interesting.